institutional framework which is not influenced by the different polars in the world? And if it is dependent, to what extent and how does that influence from the different polars influence the decisions that the institutions make? And when we speak about sovereignty, what does sovereignty imply if other countries, like the greatest powers, have influence over decisions that are taken by like African countries in the context of like Uganda? Thank you.
In Namibia, we have what we call the phenomenon of the working poor. How can we go about introducing a minimum wage to counter inequality? Sometimes you are entering an entry-level job, you are coming from university, you are offered a salary of 5,000. That doesn't even count, it doesn't cover rent. Then we have to talk about food, we have to talk about transport. So sometimes we are talking about, yes, creating employment, but how do we ensure that the employed don't become part of the working poor? And I want
This is a situation, anyone can take that, the panel. It's a situation that is seriously challenging the norms of governance in French West Africa, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, and all that. Usually the African Union and everybody are considered framework. The AU has, which is a general principle, a general norm that we don't recognize the unconstitutional changes of government. So when that happens, we immediately impose action, we immediately, if necessary, we go and intervene. What actually happened in French West Africa is that the masses of the population are supporting these military leaders. So who are you going to intervene and say, one of the president who has removed you is calling the Europeans, please reinstate me. It's not calling their own people to do that. And other countries are saying, we are part of ECOWAS, but we're not going to war. We're not intervening anyway. In other countries, there's never happened in Africa where, if Madagascar does it, the whole SADC suspends them until they intend the constitutional order. But these other ones are also saying, now, if anybody that touches Niger, you have declared war on Mali. And Guinea is saying the same, completely unheard of. And what you then do? Would you intervene as the AU when the masses are saying, we are done with these sellouts, viva the revolution? So I'm interested in hearing your view about
that. I think my question goes to Dr. Pali. My question is, in statistics, are there indicators that link corruption, corruption and inequality? Because we all know on the continent, and not only in African continent, but also in developed countries, corruption is it's big. And I also sometimes feel like our corrupt leaders maybe do not know the impact and the magnitude of their actions on the citizens, like ordinary citizens. So are there any indicators that have a direct link, corruption and inequality? And if there aren't, can't we create any? Because we need them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The gentleman over here.
Good evening, Amanda. My question also aligns with hers. The issue of inequality, the elements of accountability, corruption, and resource management were not properly, my sound is going down, were not properly outlined. So that is a major cause of anyways inequality and poverty, all of those things. Is that we are wealthy countries, even wealthier than the West, but the mismanagement of resources, misappropriation of policies is what puts us here. So those things will not cover throughout these sessions. If I miss, I don't know. So how then do we control corruption, mismanagement, unaccountable people or those who are in power if they can manipulate policies, systems, and get away with more resources than due to them? So how is that now interlinked?